All right, it's 9:03 this morning on News Radio WRVA. My name is Rich Herrera. Thanks for joining us on the Voice of Virginia, News Radio WRVA. We are catching up right now with Governor Jim Gilmore, and but I'm going to ask him to put on his ambassador's hat for me for just a moment. Again, former ambassador, former attorney general, former governor, so we get to talk about a lot of different things. So, sir, I wanted to ask you something. We kind of touched on it before I left for Ireland, and then I thought it was interesting the week that I spent in Ireland that U.S. politics is omnipresent. I watch Fox, I watch CNN, I watch MS Now, I watch all the cable news channels here in the States. Barely a peep about what goes on in Europe. But boy, when I watch the BBC and I was watching Sky News, all they talked about was the president of the United States. It was kind of eye-opening for me. Governor, do I have you? Let's put the governor back.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I hit mute by accident.
Okay.
Listen, when I was United States ambassador in Vienna, Austria, my experience was that you really can't tear down the United States with so much. We're just so powerful and so rich and so influential. People always look to the U.S. for leadership, and that was my experience when I was there. To your listeners, a couple of things. I would encourage them to go back and read King Charles's speech to the United States Congress. That was a good speech, and it had a lot in it. It reaffirmed Western support for Ukraine. It reaffirmed Western support for NATO. It also commented a little bit on domestic politics, talking about how checks and balances are built into the American and the British systems, and checks and balances. And that is a comment on what's going on in America today, of course. Oh, by the way, parenthetically, I'm amused by all the discussion you have about case officers with Governor Spanberger. I was trained as a case officer in the Army, Rich,
Well, that's the part of, and again, full disclosure, that my son wants to go into the intelligence business when he joins the military. And that's what we're hoping to hear something in the next week or so. But a lot of times when I hear people talk about the governor, they just write off, oh, she's CIA, as if there's something bad about being an intelligence officer. I mentioned this. I guess I could share this. He's not in the agency anymore. I actually have a relative that was embedded in Afghanistan during Desert Storm. Had the right skin color, and he went in and grew out the beard and did the language training. He was actually out there talking to his dad. I mean, he's as brave as anybody else going out there undercover as an operative. So when we talk about these intelligence officers, these are nameless, faceless people that we don't know what they do, but thank God they're there.
Well, look, I don't want to get you off your foreign policy discussion. I shouldn't have led you off in that
that's
particular
okay.
direction.
I'll spin us back over there, I promise.
Yeah. But, again, I think people ought to look at the King's speech. It's easy to find on the internet. As far as the case officer business, I think the implication is that Governor Spanberger was trained to mislead. Well, look, I mean, yeah, she ran as a moderate, and now she's in a position where this radical legislature is pushing her around, and she has to govern like them, which is pretty liberal, and that's not the way she ran. But that's a discussion for a later time here in Virginia. Right now, what we have to do is talk about, what's going on the referendum and what's going on overseas. I think you wanted to talk about Europe.
I want to talk about Hungary because I don't understand. Again, I try to keep up on everything, but there's things that are just they're big and I need help with, and I go out and I reach out to people off the air, on the air. I wanted to get your thoughts on Hungary. I know that J.D. Vance had kind of campaigned and was leaning into Orban, who lost in a big time way to as far as retaining the power in Hungary. And I wanted to ask you, why is that important to America, and what did it mean?
Yeah, on Saturday, I'm going to give a speech to the Republican Women's Federation in Virginia Beach, and I'm going to address some of these things and the direction of the Republican Party and the direction of our conservative movement, because the conservative movement's gotten a little strange the last several years.
Yes.
There's just no way that the conservatives in America ought to be supporting somebody like Viktor Orban. And I've watched that mutation over in that direction. I can tell you all that I'm breathing a big sigh of relief that the people of Hungary actually had a free election and could throw that guy out. And there's no way that Vice President Vance should have gone over there to campaign for that guy, because he's authoritarian. And Republicans are not for that. Conservatives are not for that kind of thing. At least that's my view, and I'll be continuing to talk about that. So he's out, and I don't believe that conservatives ought to be moving in that kind of Orban direction. And I've said so for a long time.
Yeah, cozying up to the wrong people sometimes. And I think that's very, very interesting. I did want to get your thoughts of what we're seeing right now, that the fighting in the Middle East and Iran is gone. The guns for the most part have gone silent. The Israelis are still fighting with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and now Lebanon's actually joining, and it looks like they're going to try to oust Hezbollah out of there. That's what some people are saying. We'll see. But we've gone now from a kinetic war, and we have a ceasefire. We have the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranians and the U.S. Now it's become an economic war. The U.S. is going to choke off the Iranian economy. They're not able to get anything in. I think they did find that there were some ghost ships that they discovered. They're going to try to shut that down too. The Ghost Fleet still is running against all of these sanctions. And I wanted to get your thoughts where we are today, because it seems like Iran's trying to play that same game of, oh, we'll give you a little bit, then we're going to back off. They're Charlie Brown with the football, and she keeps pulling it back away.
Yeah, look, the American start of this war together with the Israelis was intended to create a political goal, and that was to make Iran unable to attack anybody else, and particularly to develop a nuclear weapon. Well, you know, the original onslaught by Israel and the United States has not yet succeeded in that. So the president is trying economic efforts at this point, a blockade, sanctions, and all the rest of it. And we'll see if that works. I want it to work, because I think we all agree Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. If they get that, they transform the entire Middle East and the politics, and they transform the world politics, and they'd be just like another North Korea with nuclear weapons.
Can I jump in?
Can't do anything about. Yeah.
Let me jump in. I don't think they'd be another North Korea. I think they'd be worse, because you do have some dead enders in there that would like to see the chaos that a nuclear bomb would set off. At least Korea has China to kind of hold them in place. I don't know anybody that would ever be able to stop Iran from actually using that bomb.
Well, and then they have a religious sort of attitude about things that justifies that kind of thing. So I think we all agree that can't be permitted. But on the other hand, we really can't get at that those nuclear canisters down. They're buried under that mountain with special forces or military. Without having
boots on the ground. I was James Mattis's book. He talked about at one time, especially during the Obama administration, we thought, well, you know what, we could just bomb our way into taking over things, and you might be able to beat a country, but you can't conquer a country and actually affect change unless you do have the boots on the ground. And right now, the United States and the American citizens do not want to see that under any circumstances. But again, bombing is not going to be enough to get rid of those canisters.
History, I think, has shown that air power alone doesn't change the politics of an adversary country, and that has not yet happened. So there's going to have to be some discussion about this as to whether or not we can achieve these military goals or not. Look, you got to watch all this negotiation that's going on, and whether the United States is able to actually achieve anything on this. But the blockade is intended to do that. But watch out, Russia's standing behind Iran. It's true that they're all tied up in Ukraine, and the Chinese are behind Iran. So it isn't going to be all that simple to try to do something about this. But the Iran war, I think, is going to be a wide discussion going on, and I'm certainly watching it, Rich.
Oh, absolutely. And again, as they choke off, and I think they said there's 2 million jobs lost. The inflation is just completely out of control. And then the other thing to keep an eye on is how long can Iran, how much room they have left in their tanks, because once you shut down those oil wells, they're hard to restart. And if they're absolutely capacity and they can't get any ships in there, it could cripple the oil industry as well and Karg Island. So there's so much going on, but it's very interesting now. It's turned into be an economic battle where we're paying $4 a gallon. They have runaway inflation. Who blinks first?
Well, the question is, can we achieve our political goal? And, the number one goal was to change the regime to be more friendly to the United States. That has not yet occurred. You got this Strait of Hormuz problem right now. The Iranians simply cannot be left. We can't just simply withdraw and leave them in charge of that strait. They weren't before, and we can't leave them that way because then that would put them in control of much of the world's energy, and you just can't permit that. And then missiles and the rest of it, and particularly the nuclear part, that all still has to be dealt with going forward. And I'm not sure exactly what our direction is on that yet. So I did hear a good argument that made the other day by a fellow named Brian Hooks, who used to be with the first Trump administration, where he basically said, look, Iran has been a bad actor for decades and decades without a nuclear weapon. What kind of behavior are they going to do with the nuclear weapon? So that, I think, is a legitimate case to be made for this war. It's the first real case I've heard made by anybody. So, let's confront the problems that we've got. But I want to make it clear to your listeners, Ukraine is still the pivot. This Middle East thing has blown up. It's a bit of a diversion away from the European war. Europe, a friendly Europe to the United States, is essential to our safety and security, Rich. We learned that in World War II. We're learning it now. Now, that's why I think the King's speech to the Congress is a good speech that ought to be reread or rewatched by your listeners all the time, because it reaffirms our common values. And that's what really makes America the killer app, the fact that we are admired worldwide because of our values. And we need to keep those things. And I'm certainly dedicated as an American to that.
Folks, if you want to catch more with Governor Gilmore, he's on Newsmax TV this afternoon. I was going to watch baseball this afternoon because I think there's a couple day games that are makeups, but I'm going to have to ask them to put in the sports bar, give me one TV on Newsmax so I could see it. He'll be on somewhere on the 1 o'clock hour, about 1:15, talking about redistricting and King Charles' visit here to the United States on Newsmax TV this afternoon. Sir, I appreciate it, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks for the chance to talk to your listeners, as always.
You're the best. Thank you so much. Governor Jim Gilmore joining us here on News Radio WRVA. All right. Super Dave,